You've been lied to your whole life. They told you freedom was the absence of burden, the absence of chains, the absence of rules. They told you freedom was light, carefree, easy, sweet, like a bird set loose into an endless sky, like a vacation without end. They seduced you with images of beaches, blank schedules, passive income, and nothingness dressed up as happiness. But what they never told you, what they could never afford for you to find out, is that real freedom is not light. It is not ease. It is not the absence of weight. Real freedom is heavy. Real freedom begins the moment you stop blaming the world for the weight you carry and start realizing it's yours to lift, not to drop, not to hand off, to lift, to own. Freedom isn't found in detachment. It's forged in responsibility, the radical, terrifying acceptance that your life is in your hands now, that no one is coming to save you, that you are not entitled to peace just because you crave it, that comfort is a trap disguised as destiny, that everything you avoid becomes your master. This is the first truth. You were born with chains. Not physical ones, but psychic, forged from fear, doubt, approval, seeking, ego. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you were taught to bury, to exile, to lock away in shame. And what they don't teach you is that you will remain in bondage, no matter how free your life appears on the surface, until you confront that inner prison and walk straight into its darkness. Because the enemy isn't outside. It never was. The tyrant lives in your own unconscious. It wears the face of your past. It speaks with the voice of your childhood. It dresses in the robes of culture, religion, social pressure. It tells you to stay quiet, stay small, stay agreeable. It tells you that responsibility is suffering, that duty is oppression, that structure is death. And in the chaos of avoiding those things, your life collapses in on itself. Let me tell you something. Very few people are brave enough to admit. Freedom without responsibility is not liberation. It is disintegration. The man who rejects responsibility under the illusion of being free becomes a slave to every whim, every distraction, every fleeting emotion. He becomes predictable, easily controlled, a puppet. Not because someone else pulls the strings, but because he refuses to take the reins. He thinks he's free because no one's yelling at him. But in reality, he's just drifting, ruled by fear, ruled by desire, ruled by the lie that life owes him ease. There is no freedom without form. There is no peace without discipline. There is no power without burden. When you carry something meaningful, it carves you into a different kind of creature. Not soft, not passive, but focused, stoic, sharp. The man with weight on his shoulders walks differently. He speaks less, he listens more. He doesn't chase approval, he builds legacy. He doesn't beg for validation, he earns reverence. And it's not because he's special. It's because he chose to carry what most people run from. Responsibility is not the punishment, it's the path. You want to be free? Then stop waiting for your feelings to align. Stop demanding that life get easier. Stop asking the world to validate your pain before you move. Freedom is not about the removal of obstacles. It's about becoming someone who doesn't get stopped by them. There's a reason men throughout history have been drawn to the archetype of the warrior, the king, the monk, not because these figures were rich, famous, or relaxed, but because they were willing to take on the sacred burden. They carried the village, they guarded the temple, they kept the flame alive when everyone else collapsed into comfort. Responsibility is your initiation. Every time you reject blame, every time you choose alignment over ease, every time you say, this is mine to handle, you are forging yourself into someone worthy of freedom. But it will not feel like freedom in the beginning. It will feel like pressure, like weight, like intensity. It will test every excuse you've used to stay asleep. It will expose your inner coward. The part of you that wants things handed to you without struggle, without sacrifice. That part of you will scream. It will rage. It will beg you to go back to the illusion, back to the shallow comfort of victimhood. But you're done with that. You have to be, because the longer you avoid responsibility, the longer you stay imprisoned by your own unconscious. You stay ruled by circumstance, by mood, by the opinions of weaker men. But the moment, the exact second you say, no more, I own this, all of it, that's when the chains start to crack. That's when you take back the keys, not to be free in the way the world sells it, but to become someone who no longer needs escape. Someone who can stand inside the fire of life and not flinch. Let me ask you something. What's heavier? The burden of responsibility or the burden of regret? One of them will shape you. The other will haunt you. And the tragic irony is that most people will spend their entire lives trying to avoid responsibility, only to die crushed by the weight of all the things they could have been, should have done, were too afraid to face. They lie to themselves with mantras of freedom, but the truth will echo in the silence. They ran from their own becoming. You want real freedom? Then you need to understand this. The man who says, I will carry it, is the man who gets to choose his path. Not because the world bends to him, but because he bends himself into someone unbreakable, reliable, disciplined, sovereign. That man can be trusted. That man has presence. That man walks into a room and doesn't have to speak. People feel it because he carries weight, because he has structure, because he has fire in his soul that can't be bought, can't be borrowed, can't be faked. Responsibility is the sacred forge, and most will never enter it. They'll choose chaos over order, comfort over growth, excuses over evolution. They'll mock responsibility as too serious, too rigid, too old school. But what they don't see, what they refuse to see, is that in avoiding the weight, they become slaves to it. Because the weight doesn't go away. It just waits. It waits for the day you're too weak to lift it. It waits for your crisis, your collapse, your reckoning. And when that day comes, when your illusions fall apart, you will either rise and lift what's yours, or you will drown in the very things you thought you escaped. So I ask you again, what does freedom mean to you? Is it absence, or is it presence? Is it silence, or is it power? Is it emptiness, or is it the unshakable knowing that no matter what life throws your way, you will not be moved? The answer will define your life. You are not here to be light. You are here to be fire. You are not here to float. You are here to carve, to construct, to shape the raw stone of your soul into something timeless. Freedom isn't light. It is the heaviest thing you'll ever carry. And the most sacred. And yet, despite the fire in your chest, despite the part of you that hears these words and knows they are true, there is still a pull, isn't there? A whisper in the back of your mind that says, but what if I'm not enough? What if the weight is too much? What if I fail? Good. Because that whisper, that is the dragon. And freedom, true freedom, is not found in running from the dragon. It's found in facing it. Carl Jung once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. What he meant was this. The exact thing you avoid, the exact place you resist going, the exact burden you deny, that is where your liberation waits. Not in evasion, not in someone else's approval, not in comfort, in confrontation. Freedom is born the moment you stop negotiating with fear. The moment you stop asking for lighter burdens and start building a stronger back. You see, most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they expect the path to feel like motivation. They wait for permission. They wait for energy. They wait for certainty. But the man who lives free, he moves anyway. He acts when it's inconvenient. He creates when no one's clapping. He builds when no one's watching. because he's not chasing ease, he's chasing sovereignty. He knows that anything given can be taken. Validation, applause, comfort, circumstance, all of it is temporary. But character, discipline, will, that's built in the dark. That's built when no one's coming. That's built when you say, even if it breaks me, I'm going to rise. That's real freedom. It's not about doing what you want when you want. That's a child's fantasy. That's the dream sold to slaves to keep them from noticing their chains. Real freedom is about choosing your duty. Not because someone forced it on you, but because you decided who you want to become, and now nothing can pull you off that path. Not pain, not praise, not failure, not fear. The man who has accepted responsibility for his entire life is no longer a victim of life. He becomes the author. And authors don't beg for the plot to be easier. They write through the blood, they write through the storm, they write through the heartbreak, because they know the power is not in controlling the page. It's in owning the pen. So let me tell you this directly, without softness. If you are still blaming someone else for the way your life feels, you are not free. If you are still waiting for your past to apologize, you are not free. If you are still negotiating your standards to make others comfortable, you are not free. If your moods, your habits, your sense of worth is dictated by things outside your own soul, you are not free. You are leased, borrowed, owned, and that's what this is about. Not just living more comfortably, but reclaiming what is yours. Your mind, your energy, your voice, your future. You do not need to become someone else to be worthy of that. You just need to stop abandoning yourself every time it gets difficult. Because it will be difficult. But that difficulty is not the enemy. That difficulty is the training ground. It's the wilderness every king had to walk through before he ever touched the throne. It's the crucible every soul must pass through to emerge forged. Without that wilderness, there is no depth. Without that burden, there is no shape. Without responsibility, there is no authority. You see, authority is not granted. It is earned, not from others, but from your own conscience. The man who has walked through fire and refused to collapse, he becomes someone people trust. Not because he demanded it, but because he embodied it. His word is solid, his presence is stable. His boundaries are respected, not because he yells, but because they are backed by reality. His yes means something. His no is final. His life is not perfect, but it is his. And that is everything. Because the world is not starving for more dreamers, more talkers, more people who say the right things when it's easy. The world is starving for anchors. People who don't drift. People who don't collapse under pressure. People who don't hand their power away to noise, to trends, to other people's opinions. You become that person not by talking about freedom, but by choosing responsibility again and again and again when no one else is watching. That's where you build the inner fortress. Not a wall to keep life out, but a throne to rule your life from. And yes, that will make you different. It will make you strange to the people who are still addicted to their own helplessness. It will make you threatening to those who find safety in mediocrity. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You will be mocked for caring too much, for working too hard, for not playing the game the way they want you to. But you will be free. And that freedom will not be light. It will not be easy. It will not always feel like victory. But it will be yours. And in the end, that is what a meaningful life is made of, not fleeting moments of ease, but the quiet, unshakable knowing that you became someone who carried the weight and never put it down. And once you carry the weight, not out of obligation, but by choice, another truth reveals itself, sharper and quieter than the first. The mind you've been using until now is not built for what you're stepping into. The old way of thinking was born in retreat. It was built in the absence of pressure. It was shaped to survive, not to reign. And survival mindsets cannot hold the throne of a responsible man because they seek relief, not rule. To carry the sacred burden of responsibility and keep carrying it, you need a shift far deeper than discipline. You need a transformation in thought, a reordering of perception, a restructuring of identity. You must become someone whose thinking is as heavy as the path you walk, because here's the truth. No man can carry a sovereign life with a slave mentality. You must break the mental mold that was given to you, the one shaped by comfort, school systems, pop culture, and generational wounds. That mold taught you to think like a follower, like a seeker of ease, like someone waiting for instructions, like someone who needs clarity handed to them before they move. That kind of thinking is death, slow, smiling death. If you want to build something worthy of your suffering, your thinking must become original. Not rebellious, not reactionary, original. Your vision can no longer come from escaping what you hate. It must be born from building what you love, what you are willing to bleed for, what you are willing to guard with silence, what you are willing to stand for when it costs you everything. Because this is the unspoken truth about transformation. It does not happen at the level of behavior, it happens at the level of worldview. The man who changes his schedule without changing his spirit is still a slave. He may look productive, he may look on track, but if his thoughts are still rooted in fear, in validation, in survival, he will sabotage everything the moment pressure appears. You don't need a new system. You need a new lens. And the first shift in that lens is this. You stop asking, how do I get out of this? And you start asking, what kind of man must I become to stand inside this and remain unshaken? That question is the doorway. Because the man who changes his thinking in that direction begins to see the storm differently. He doesn't beg for the waves to calm down. He becomes the lighthouse, the structure, the unmovable reference point in chaos. And from that clarity comes the most terrifying and empowering gift of all, vision. Vision is not a 5-year plan. It's not a vision board. It's not a motivational quote. Vision is the deep-rooted knowing of why you are still breathing. Vision is the language of the man who no longer tolerates a passive mind. It gives shape to the responsibility. It gives rhythm to the discipline. It gives light to the suffering. Without vision, responsibility feels like punishment. With vision, it becomes purpose. And not some vague, feel-good version of purpose. No. Vision is brutal, precise, demanding. It requires you to say no to everything that does not align. It requires you to disappoint people, to move in silence, to sacrifice options in exchange for direction. And most people don't want direction. They want relief. But a man of vision is not interested in relief. He's interested in alignment. He doesn't react to what's in front of him. He responds to what he's building. He's not driven by dopamine, he's driven by destiny. That kind of mind is dangerous. Not because it's loud, but because it cannot be seduced. It doesn't chase, it doesn't flinch, it doesn't ask for applause. Because it knows exactly where it's going and exactly what must die to get there. That is what freedom becomes when your mind evolves. Not lightness, not pleasure, but vision so sharp, it cuts through noise, cuts through doubt, cuts through delay. And with that kind of thinking, responsibility no longer weighs you down. It lifts you. It roots you deeper. It expands your reach. It sharpens your decisions. Because now, your thinking is no longer about what's convenient. It's about what's true. And truth, real, deep, soul-splitting truth, is the only thing strong enough to build a free life on. Everything else will collapse. But you, if you keep walking, keep carrying, keep sharpening your thoughts into something that no fear can corrupt, you won't just be free. You'll be dangerous to everything that wants to keep men weak. Because the real enemy of freedom was never the world. It was the version of you that refused to grow. It was the version of you that flinched at pressure, that mistook comfort for peace, that thought freedom was a gift, not a consequence, not a conquest, not a crown that must be earned through blood, decision, and silence. But now you know better. Now you understand why most men stay stuck. Not because they lack time, not because they lack talent, but because they lack the courage to lift the weight that was always theirs to carry. Because deep down they're still looking for the back door, the loophole, the shortcut where responsibility disappears and freedom arrives like a delivery. But that door does not exist. There is no path to freedom that does not pass through fire. And you've already stepped into it. You've already begun. And that beginning makes you different. Not because you're better, but because you're awake. Now you feel it not as theory, but as vibration in your bones. That freedom is not the removal of chains, but the building of character. That freedom is not doing what you want. It's becoming someone who can be trusted with power. That freedom is not light. It is weight willingly carried by a man who has decided he will no longer run from himself. So carry it. Carry it when no one sees. Carry it when your hands shake. Carry it when the world misunderstands you. Carry it when your old mind screams for ease. Because each time you carry it, you evolve, you sharpen, you ascend. You become one of the rare few who walk this earth with a spine made of conviction and a soul immune to seduction. And the world will notice. They won't say it out loud, but they'll feel it in how you walk, in how you hold eye contact, in how you don't explain yourself, in how your presence says what your words no longer need to. You will become undeniable because you did not seek lightness. You chose weight. And that choice, made daily, relentlessly, with no applause, is freedom. Now go. Build the structure. Sharpen the vision. Carry the burden. And live in such a way that your life becomes a quiet revolution against every lie that ever told you freedom was supposed to be easy.